In the US alone, statistics show that 79% of Americans feel stress sometimes or frequently in their daily lives. 80% of working people feel stress on the job, and half of them need help in managing that stress. Workplace stress accounts for $300 billion in lost productivity annually. Now, that's just crazy. That is having a huge impact on our felt sense of well-being, on our productivity, on our relationships, on our performance. I grew up in a family of anxious, stressed out people, but everyone hid it. We looked good, capable, and just fine, but there was always an undercurrent of unease. We used alcohol, pharmaceuticals, food, rigidity, affairs, permissiveness, religion, and various other attempts to manage stress and anxiety. We looked good and successful, but we were missing out on all the juice life had to offer. We were missing out on all the depth and richness that were available to us. I learned from an early age to keep my own mental chatter and anxiety to myself, lest I rock our fragile boat. It's lonely and frightening managing hidden stress, anxiety, and mental chatter, and it led to much dysfunction in my life. My path became about breaking through my patterns of stress and anxiety and then helping others to do the same. I discovered through my own personal journey and by working with hundreds of people that a healthy and clear mind creates a healthy and fulfilling life, better work performance, and richer relationships. When you quiet your insecure or anxious thinking and overactive imagination, even temporarily, even briefly, you are able to access your inner wisdom, resourcefulness, and well-being. Many folks may agree that a healthy and clear mind can help create a healthy and fulfilling life, but the question always is, but how, Carla? How in the world can I quiet my crazy monkey mind? Well, that's an excellent question. If you are listening to this talk, then you have likely read many self-help books. You've probably gathered a multitude of tools and techniques. Many folks look for the answer in tools and techniques. They use these tools and techniques in an attempt to manage the stress and anxiety all around them. But they find that while that may work for a while, it often doesn't work over time. The changes they are able to make don't last over the long haul. You could think of your New Year's resolutions. You're gung-ho for a few weeks, and then all of your good intentions fall by the wayside. Why is that? That's another excellent question. And to answer that, let me share a little story with you. I have a friend who was a smoker for decades. He knew it wasn't good for him. He knew he should quit. He even wanted to quit. He tried every technique in the book, but he was smoking again in a matter of days, every single time. Then one day he visited his doctor. The doctor was concerned about my friend's lungs and did an x-ray. My friend had never had a lung x-ray before. He told me that when he saw all the black consuming his lungs, it changed him right on the spot, right then and there. He suddenly had an insight. He saw firsthand how his smoking was killing him. He said it was like an epiphany of sorts. He suddenly had a deep understanding of what was happening to him, rather than just a theory about it. From that moment on, he never lit up a cigarette again, not once. He didn't need any tools or techniques. What he needed was an insight, was understanding. You see, change happens through insight, not through tools and techniques. Once you deeply understand, then tools and techniques can become useful. Without understanding or insight, tools and techniques tend to be, well, short-lived. So what understanding, what insight do you need in order to deal better with stress and anxiety? That's exactly what I want to share with you today. You could think of gravity. When you were a child learning to walk, you didn't account for the principle of gravity. You tried to stand, you attempted to place one foot in front of the other, but again and again you fell because you didn't understand gravity. It took you quite a while to align your body with gravity, but once you did, you could walk. It's the same idea with our psychological system. If we don't have a clear understanding of how our psychological systems work, then we'll keep falling. We'll keep collapsing into or totally avoiding our emotions. We'll keep getting caught up in the stress and anxiety. We'll keep buying into all of our mental chatter. The first thing I want you to know, and I want you to take this deep into your bones, is that you were built for reality. You were built for reality. In fact, if you are listening to this talk, then you have a 100% survival rate. That's right. You have survived every single thing thrown at you your entire life. You have a 100% survival rate. You have a huge amount of built-in capacity and capability. I can't emphasize this enough because it's extremely important. But we forget this. We forget who we really are. You are star stuff. You are divinity. You came into this world with innate wisdom, resilience, resourcefulness, peace, joy, love, and much more. That is who you are at your essence. That is your true self. Over time, all kinds of beliefs were heaped upon you. Family beliefs, religious beliefs, cultural beliefs. As this happened, you began to forget who you truly are, who you are fundamentally, who you are at your core. It may be that you began to distrust yourself. It may be that you began to hide your true self. It may be that you even began to fear your true self. It may be that you forgot that you already have within you all the answers that you need in order to live this crazy life. This happened innocently to almost all of us. So a crucial step in overcoming stress and anxiety is to remember who you are fundamentally. We are all plugged into the essence of life or wisdom all the time. This place of wisdom is where your insights, creativity, intuition, and your aha moments occur. We've all had experiences of this. Sometimes we are dialed into this wisdom and sometimes we aren't, but it's always there. And this brings me to the second thing I want you to know. You have too much on your mind, as if you didn't already know that. Of course, this isn't a surprise to you. We've all got too much on our minds. But here's the thing, the more you have on your mind, all that negative mental chatter, the more difficult it is to hear, if you will, to hear your innate wisdom. The more out of touch you are with your fundamental nature, the more difficult it is to hear your innate wisdom. When you are all hyped up, super angry and agitated, or too low, too down, then your thoughts become clustered and loud, like a tornado in your head. We've all had this painful experience. When your natural wisdom tries to come up, it gets lost in the tornado of thoughts. It's there, but you can't hear it. When you connect to who you truly are at your essence, when you are grounded, when you are living in the present moment, then the thoughts slow down just a bit, allowing for some space between them. They never stop, of course. That would be impossible. But they do settle down a bit. You don't engage every single one of them. Now they are free to move along, and wisdom, insights, creativity, and intuition are able to be heard again. So let's talk about stress. The stress response is specifically designed to save your life in immediate threatening situations. Our stress response has evolved to be activated every 24 to 72 hours for up to 30 minutes with no problem at all, no damage to our bodies, no lingering effects. You could think of an antelope on the savannah. The antelope grazes happily. It is relaxed and aware, relaxed and alert. It knows there are lions and tigers hiding out there. Now imagine it's grazing when suddenly a lion leaps out. It has a built-in system to protect itself. Adrenaline and cortisol and all those good chemicals flood the antelope system as it's meant to do. Now the chase is on. Now let's say that for whatever reason, the lion breaks away from the chase. What happens next? The antelope is back to grazing within minutes. Within minutes. The antelope is once again relaxed and aware, relaxed and alert, as its system seeks to return to equilibrium. And it does. It returns to equilibrium in a matter of minutes. That's how the system is meant to work. Humans were evolved to work in the same way. Our psychological system seeks equilibrium all on its own. It's not something you have to make happen. That's how the system is designed. But we do have a problem here. You see, we don't allow our systems to go back to equilibrium like the antelope does. This keeps the adrenaline and cortisol flooding our systems well over the 30 minutes that our systems are designed for. In addition, we respond to day-to-day stressful situations as if they are life-threatening when they're not. This keeps us in an amped up, jacked up state with a racing mind and deteriorating health. It's a huge problem for us. So why do we do this? I believe we do it because of a misunderstanding of where our experience comes from. We grow up in a culture that tells us that our experience comes from outside of ourselves. We are taught that we experience what's out there. And that certainly sounds reasonable, makes sense on some level. But this is a misunderstanding, and new psychology is showing this. Neuroscience shows that we experience what's out there through our internal perceptions. In other words, we don't actually experience what's out there. We experience what we think about what's out there. We experience our perception of what's out there. Our experience of life is actually internally generated. Now hang in here with me, because I know this may seem a little crazy, but stay with me because this is really important. And I know it's a bit of a new paradigm. But why is it, think about this, give this some thought. Why is it that some days when you are driving along and someone cuts in front of you, you get super angry, but another day you don't? Why is it that sometimes you go on a really great vacation and you're miserable, and other times you're in a miserable place, but you feel perfectly fine? Why is it that one person absolutely collapses in the face of something like cancer or being held up at gunpoint or bankruptcy or some other horrible experience, and yet another person moves through those things gracefully with very little suffering? It's because we generate our experience from the inside out, not from the outside in. What we think about a situation has everything to do with how we will experience it. Let me give you a very personal example. 20 years ago, I went through bankruptcy. That was not fun. Now, bankruptcy is absolutely a real situation. It happened. Now, here's what I did. I freaked out. I was panicked. I was terrified. I was terribly ashamed. Now, a friend of mine went through the same circumstance. She went through bankruptcy too. But you know what? She had very little angst about it. What's the difference? Why did I have so much angst and she had so little angst? The difference is that I went into what I call exponential thinking, and she didn't. Here's how exponential thinking works and why it's a problem. In this diagram, I have put the fact of the situation inside the blue lines. The fact is bankruptcy. That's the fact. Outside the lines, I put all my stories or narrative about the bankruptcy. These are some of my stories. I'm a failure. No one will ever respect me again. I'm going to be homeless. I'll never have good credit again. I'm so ashamed. I've got to hide this from everyone. Now, we know that millions of people go through bankruptcy every year. In fact, these laws were put in place to protect people. It's navigable. It's possible to recover. We can find our way through such situations, and people do it time and again. And as devastated as I was, I too found my way through. But I suffered tremendously, unlike my friend, not because of the fact of bankruptcy, that's what's out there, the bankruptcy, but because of my stories, my narrative about it, what's in here in my mind. Those stories of doom absolutely overwhelmed me, and I was miserable. And it made finding my way through it much more difficult, though I did. Let's do one more example. Now, imagine that your boss or colleague comes to your office and she seems to be, I don't know, a tad curt. After she leaves, what do? Let me diagram how it might go. You may begin thinking, what a jerk. Well, two can play this game. I'm going to ignore her. Or I'm sure she's saying terrible things behind my back. My reputation is shot to hell. Or they've been cutting costs. Maybe they're going to fire me. I'll never make it without this job. Now, if you go into these stories, you are going to suffer. You are going to feel overwhelmed. You are going to find it difficult to navigate the situation. However, if you stay with the fact that your boss was curt or short and leave it at that, not making up a bunch of meaning about it, you have much more room for your wisdom to surface about how to navigate the situation. But if you get caught up in your mental chatter about your boss, and you know how that goes, then you will find yourself in that mind tornado where it's difficult to access your innate wisdom, resourcefulness, creativity, and find your way forward. So the key is to wake up to the stories you are telling yourself. Wake up to your own exponential thinking and bring yourself back into the present moment as best you can. The answers you seek are only ever available in the present moment. You can experiment with this. As you go about your day, notice where you are telling yourself stories about what's happening around you. Tune into your narrative. For example, if someone cuts me off while I'm driving, I find that I either have no story about it and therefore feel pretty neutral about them pulling out in front of me, or I have a negative story. They are such a jerk. Who do they think they are? And then I feel anger and agitation. Or I might have a caring story. Oh my goodness, I hope everything is okay. They must really be struggling to pull out in front of me like that. And in that case, I probably will feel calm and caring. Depending on which story I tell myself, I'll either feel good, bad, or neutral. You can test it out for yourself. See if you can wake up to the stories you have about what's happening around you. If you are caught up in a stressful story, you will feel stress. If you are caught up in a pleasant story, you will feel pleasant. If you have no story, then it will probably not have much of an impact on you either way. Here's one more simple example. I was out to dinner with two other friends a while back. All three of us were in the same exact situation, but each of us had a different experience of our dinner. One of my friends was miserable because she felt that the waiter was rude and just horrible at his job. She did not have a good time. She moaned and groaned about the situation repeatedly, and she wanted to talk to the manager about the waiter. Now, my other friend thought the waiter was a tad distracted, but that it was no big deal, and she actually enjoyed her meal and evening just fine. I honestly didn't even notice a problem with the waiter. I enjoyed my meal and the time with my friends. All three of us had the exact same waiter, but we each experienced him through our own filter, through our own perception, through our own narrative and stories. If you pay attention, you'll see this at work in your life repeatedly. And once you start seeing it, it's difficult to stop seeing it. And it can make a huge difference in your life, sort of like When you catch on to a magic trick, the gig is up. When we are caught up in stress and anxiety, it's almost always because we are caught up in our stories about a situation, person, or circumstance. It's also often a symptom of reliving the past again and again, or projecting into the future, worried about what could happen. Of course, it's healthy to touch into the past, and it's healthy to plan for and consider the future. But when we take up residence there, when we move in there into those memories or imaginings, we're likely to get into trouble. We are likely to get caught up in a bunch of negative mental chatter. And then, well, we suffer. Eckhart Tolle says, unease, anxiety, tension, stress, worry, all forms of fear are caused by too much future and not enough presence. Guilt, regret, resentment, grievances, sadness, bitterness, and all forms of non-forgivenesses are caused by too much past and not enough presence. Remember, you are built for the reality of this present moment, not for a past or future moment. Your answers and clear mind can only be found in the present moment. If you want to reduce your feelings of stress and anxiety, try this. First, remember who you are fundamentally. You are star stuff. You are divinity. You have a 100% survival rate. I want you to really take that in. Secondly, remember that your psychological system is self-correcting and is constantly seeking equilibrium. If you leave it to do its thing and not tinker there too much, it will return to equilibrium eventually, just like a cut heals naturally when you just cover it and leave it alone. Thirdly, wake up to the stories or narrative that you have about what's happening out there. When you drop these stories, you are left with much less on your mind and much more clarity, able to connect with your innate wisdom about how to proceed. I often tell my clients when we first start meeting that I believe that people have two basic problems. They've forgotten who they are, and they have too much on their minds. They agree, and they laugh because they think I'm being a little too simplistic. But over time, as they take things off their minds and as they remember who they are fundamentally, they recognize how incredibly transformative these ideas are and what a difference they make in their lives. I work with high-achieving, high-performance clients who are quietly dealing with hidden anxiety and stress. When I share these ideas with them, yes, they do. They balk a bit because it's a bit of a different paradigm. In fact, a year ago, one of my clients, who is an attorney, said to me, "Now, Carla, you know I have a scientific mind, and these ideas, well, they're a tad woo-woo for me. But I've been experimenting with them, and I can't believe what a difference it's making in my life." But you see, she and my other clients seriously consider these ideas, and they experiment with them. And then they inevitably experience relief, sometimes to an almost miraculous degree. They begin catching themselves in their stories. They begin waking up to the fact that they experience the same situations differently depending on how they are thinking about them. They begin to see the value in their feelings of anxiety or stress because they can now see those feelings as a an alarm clock of sorts that is waking them up to their stressful thinking and stressful stories. Those feelings are their wake-up call. When they wake up, they are able to bring themselves back to the present moment where they can find their clarity and flow again. This understanding I'm sharing with you is truly transformational. Our stress response is good and healthy, but it's meant for real-time threats in the present moment. You aren't meant to live in that state day in and day out. When you can see where your experience of life is actually coming from your perception, from your stories, from your narrative, you are able to wake up to it, able to bring yourself back to the present moment, and then able to access your innate wisdom, resourcefulness, peace, and flow. Remember, when you quiet your insecure or anxious thinking and overactive imagination, even temporarily, you are then able to access your inner wisdom, resourcefulness, and well-being. This is not only possible, but I've seen it happen for myself and for many of my clients. Remember, life is living you. Live in the present moment. Well-being and peace are innate. They're your birthright. Remember who you are and take things off your mind. And as you do this, I promise you will soar. If you want to learn how to calm mental chatter and lower stress in 5 minutes, then come on over to carlaroyal.com and download a free ebook that I have created for you. Inside this ebook, you'll find 10 tips to calm mental chatter and lower stress so that you can show up fully for your personal and professional life, as well as for a world in great need. I also give you 5 strategies to help you successfully incorporate these practices into your daily life, plus a tool to help you track your progress. Thank you for listening. I am Carla Royal, a mindset and performance coach working with high-achieving, high-performance entrepreneurs and business owners who are quietly dealing with hidden anxiety, stress, and mental chatter. I help my clients find more headspace, be less guarded, value mistakes, sleep better, find more meaning, be less judgmental, and be more confident so that they can lead more effectively and have richer relationships. My work as a coach is all about deep transformation. I'm not only a master certified coach, I was a licensed psychotherapist for 15 years before becoming a coach, and that work still informs me today. I've gone through extensive training both as therapist and coach, and I've been doing this work since 1990. Most importantly, I've done the work myself. I've had a therapist or coach since 1985 because I have learned that that level of support and accountability is the foundation for success, growth, and breaking free. My life has bloomed in ways I never expected, given the past I came from. It's why I wake up every day excited to serve my clients. I'd love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. You can just Google my name to find me, and let's connect. I'd be delighted.